Today I have a coffee from a local roaster, and this is Sightglass Coffe. I reviewed a few of their coffees before. Not sure if I have any on video, but this is the Sumatra Silaban Village. And I don't actually drink a lot of Sumatran coffee. In my experience, most of the Sumatran coffees I've had have been overly roasted, and I just haven't been able to get into them. So I decided to pick this one up mostly because it had a pretty fresh roast date at my local grocery store, and I didn't look at any of the flavor notes that they have jotted down on the back of this little placard here. I love the design of this, by the way, but I'll just read it to you. So after I did experiment with this coffee a bit and get to taste it using only really one brew method, which was through a new automatic drip coffee maker I'm testing, I found that there were definitely commonalities in what the tasting notes the roast master put down here, so I'll just read it to you. This is a carefully balanced coffee with a heavy mouthfeel of aromatic pipe tobacco and bright lime acidity. So I definitely agree with the tobacco bit, because that was one of the flavors I was consistently picking up on. Not initially, but as it sat in my mouth, it was really a heavy flavor profile. As far as the lime goes, I mean, I think it's spot on in hindsight, but I wasn't able to really pinpoint lime as the fruit that I was tasting. I actually labeled it as cherry because it wasn't something that I would describe as lemon. It wasn't, it was kind of between citrus, berry, and other types of fruit, so that was pretty difficult for me, but the lime seems like it's a pretty accurate way of describing it. So the processing method is something I wanted to just talk about. Wet hold. So since this is a region that is very rainy, they actually harvest the coffee during the wet season, whereas many places or many regions of the world harvest their coffee during the dry season. So what wet holding is, and I just did a little research before making this video, is that the coffee isn't fully dry when it's being processed. So the pulp of the cherry is removed and some mucilage is left behind before it's then washed again and dried again. So it's kind of a complex hybrid processing method, and you know, Sightglass described on their site that it's a pretty difficult one to get right. It can often result in some pretty unpleasant coffees, but they seem to think that they hit the nail on the head. Since I don't really have much to refer to in terms of other wet hold coffees, or even Sumatran coffees for that matter, I can't tell you if that's true. But I did like this coffee. I don't think that it's one I would get again, but I thought it was a nice, unique experience. And the reason I say I wouldn't get it again is because it kind of has these flavor notes that I'm not after. I mean, I know some people might like the taste or even aroma of tobacco, and that's fine if that's what you're into, but you know, that's not really what I'm looking for in coffee. Maybe as a one-time thing, as I said, I don't regret buying this, but I'm more after stuff that has kind of the fruitiness, the sweetness, and the chocolatey notes, which I will say that this did have, but it didn't come until the aftertaste, which I think was one of the best parts about this coffee, was its aftertaste. So it definitely was well balanced, not very complex. You know, I noted the lime, the tobacco. I also picked up a little bit of vanilla here and there, the chocolate, as I mentioned, in the aftertaste, and the cherry, which is what I described in terms of the fruit. But you know, since I only really brewed with one method, I couldn't tell you that there was a complexity based off of brew method. I can tell you that from using different grind settings, there wasn't much variance. So the aroma also was just, all I really smelled was popcorn in its whole bean form, and then that coffee smell when it was brewed. So should you pick this coffee up? Well, it depends what you're into. I recommend that you check out my full review. It's going to be linked below, and that will give you the full description of what I picked up on and give you a sense for whether this coffee is worth trying or not. So I think this was definitely the most unique coffee I've had from Sightglass, and maybe in the past 6 months, but I wouldn't buy it again. So nothing against Sightglass. These guys are one of the best roasters in the Bay Area, and their coffees are really pretty awesome. But this wasn't my favorite in recent memory. So thanks for watching, and if you liked this review, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share, whatever.